But I want you to think about it. This is the important point. 100+ years ago, working class kids did not go to public schools. They worked in factories and they worked in fields all over America. And then people said, you know what, that's wrong. We want our kids to get a decent education. So you walk in the door of this school tomorrow, no one asks you how much money your family has. You are entitled to it. That's what we've done as a society. You vote, well, you will vote. Your parents vote. That didn't happen by accident. There were people in the founding of this country who said, it's a long history, it wasn't for everybody, but who said that we don't want to be run by a king or a few people. We want everybody to be able to participate in the political process. You have the right to vote. You want to protest out there. You want to protest Bernie Sanders? People do it all the time. Get a picket line. You have the right to protest. We have a Bill of Rights. We have a Constitution. But I want you to think about what we don't have in this country, where other countries actually do have. We have in America 87 million people who are uninsured or underinsured, who don't go to a doctor when they should. Do we have, now here is the question, should we have a right to health care as a human right, not as a privilege? I think so. Not everybody does. Many of you, I hope, are thinking of getting a higher education. Some of you will not be able to afford to go to college, or you're going to leave school deeply in debt. There are countries all over the world that say that they want all of their kids, regardless of their income, who have the ability to get a higher education. Should that be a right? Okay, it is in some countries. In some countries, if a mom has a baby, she'll get 10 months off with full pay. In the United States, women go back to work after a week or two if they don't have a whole lot of money. Should people be able to have paid family and medical leave as a human right? Okay. Tonight, in the United States, 500,000 people will sleep out on the streets or in emergency shelters. Should housing be considered a human right? Okay, so that's what I want you to be thinking about. What we are entitled to as human beings. And I think when you think about that, you'll also be understanding that you live in a society with mass inequalities. Now, you don't see this on television very often, and I want you to ask yourselves why you don't. 3 people in America own more wealth than the bottom half of the country. What do you think about that? All right, 3 people. The top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Yesterday, here in Des Moines, I sat down with some workers who work for McDonald's, including a mother who has 3 kids. She makes $10 an hour. She can't take care of her kids adequately on $10 an hour. So you got a handful of people who have unbelievable wealth. You got millions of people struggling hard, including your parents, to put food on the table, make sure you have health care and decent education. And you got 40 million people living in poverty, while 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America. You have to think about that. Is that appropriate? Is that right? How did it happen? How does it happen that in that context, President of the United States and the Republican leadership gave over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1% and to large corporations, while they want to cut back on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, education, and environmental protection? So these are some of the issues. I'm going to get to answer some questions now. But I want you to be thinking hard about the kind of America you want to see, what justice means: economic justice, social justice, racial justice, environmental justice. And your job, I know a lot of your friends probably are saying to you, why are you going to a political meeting on a Sunday? You must be nuts, right? You tell them that they are nuts, that you are doing exactly the right thing. You believe in democracy, you want to hear from candidates, and you want to make this country a better place. Thank you.
If I use that mic. There you go. And I would like to welcome you back here, actually. You were here in April 2016 during the last election, so welcome back to Roosevelt High School. We're going to start off with the same question that every candidate today has received and will receive. When registering to attend this event, almost 57% of students reported that they'd be eligible to vote in the 2020 election, yet only 44% said that they plan to. If you win the Democratic nomination, what will you do to engage America's youth and increase voter participation?
Well, we do that, certainly as president, I would do that big time. And I'll tell you why. The younger generation, it turns out, is all over the country. Young people do not participate in as great a numbers as they should. So what I say to the young people, if you want to live in a society where you have decent paying jobs, you got to participate. If you want to live in a society where health care is a human right, you got to participate. If you want to join the fight against racism and sexism and homophobia and xenophobia and religious bigotry, and I know many of you feel strongly about those issues, you got to participate. If you are concerned that the planet that you are living in may not be healthy and habitable for your kids and your grandchildren and future generations, you better participate. So my plea is, not just for me, obviously I would like your support, but my plea is for you, that you got to make democracy work. You have to stand up to very powerful special interests who contribute hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into the political process. So that would be my view toward the young people.
Now your first question from the audience is going to come from Cade Van Meeteren. He's a student at Ankeny Centennial High School.
How do you plan to address climate change, especially considering that it will most adversely impact current and future generations, such as ours?
All right, I would urge you all to go to my website. It's berniesanders.com, where we have just laid out a few weeks ago the most comprehensive and bold climate change plan that any candidate for president, I think almost any candidate, has ever introduced. It is a very bold plan. It is a very expensive plan. And what the plan basically does is what the scientists tell us we have to do. And that is, we need dramatic transformation of our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And what we do in the process is create some 20 million jobs, moving this country into energy efficiency, retrofitting homes all over this country, electrifying our transportation system, and aggressively investing in sustainable energies like wind and solar. You guys here in Iowa have done a very good job in solar. I think you get about 35% of your electricity from solar. That's great. Texas is doing well. Other states are doing well, but we have to do a lot more. Have to do a lot more in solar. We have to invest in new research and development. Here is the bottom line, and you're seeing it literally right before your eyes. You're seeing unprecedented rainfall in Texas right now, or a couple of days ago. You saw the Bahamas devastated by an extreme weather disturbance. You saw Puerto Rico devastated a few years ago. You're seeing all over the world droughts, which is driving people from their homes. You're seeing floods. I was in Paradise, California, a couple of months ago. Anybody remember what happened in Paradise, California? There was a terrible fire because there was a drought in the whole area. There was a wildfire. A town of 26,000 people lost 86 people. Some 18,000 buildings were destroyed. Oh, that was like a bomb dropped on the town. This is what is happening in America now. Rising sea levels will mean that parts of Miami, Charleston, other major cities will be partially underwater in 30, 40 years. New York City may be underwater. So we have got to act. And what we have proposed is the most dramatic climate change plan that any candidate has ever proposed. And go to berniesanders.com and you can read all of the details, okay?
Thank you. Your next question will come from Mitchell McComber. He's a student at Central College in Pella.
Senator Sanders, I use guns to hunt and purely for sport. What should someone like myself expect in the future related to gun rights if you were elected?
Great. I come from a state where a whole lot of people hunt. We are, I don't know if we're more rural than Iowa, but we are a very rural state. Most of our people live in towns less than 1,000. A lot of people hunt, a lot of people own guns. I believe in the Second Amendment. But what I am very concerned about is the kinds of mass shootings that we have seen in recent years and the kind of gun violence that takes place. We're losing about 40,000 people a year, maybe half of that to suicide, as a matter of fact, the others to shootings. So what I think we need to do is what the American people want us to do, which is to implement kind of common sense gun safety legislation, which will have zero impact on your ability to hunt. You should hunt, you know. If you want to hunt, that's your right. But what it does do is it expands background checks to make sure that folks who buy guns are not people who have been involved in violence or domestic violence in the past. It does away with the gun show loophole, which allows people to legally buy guns by avoiding a background check. It does away with the so-called straw man provision, which allows you to walk into a gun store, buy guns legally, and then sell them to criminal elements. And I happen to believe that we should ban the sale and distribution of assault weapons as well, which is something I doubt that you use for hunting, right? Okay, that's kind of what we have in mind. So don't let anybody, you know, here's the point. What I've just described is not just what I want to see, and there's more that has to be done. It's what the American people want, overwhelmingly in some cases. But it's not happening. And it's not happening because the Republican Party is intimidated by the NRA. And I don't think it should be the NRA that makes gun policy in America. I think it should be the American people. So I will not be intimidated by the NRA, but you will be able to continue to enjoy hunting. Okay?
Senator, a quick follow-up. Now, you've previously voted against holding gun manufacturers liable for injuries caused by their products. Wouldn't liability encourage...
It's not a question of holding them responsible for injuries. Nobody thinks you hold somebody responsible for injuries. What you hold people responsible for is if you are a gun manufacturer, okay, and you're selling guns to a gun store in a town, and suddenly you're selling huge amounts of guns in a small town, something is wrong there, and a gun manufacturer should be held liable for that.
But you voted in the past against holding them
But the
liable.
world, I did, but it's not a question. What we have seen in recent years is gun manufacturers not doing what they should do and address that issue of large numbers of guns going to areas which would not normally support those numbers.
So in the future, would you vote to
Yes,
hold them
I'm
liable
on the
then?
bill that would do that now.
Okay. Your next question will come from Megan Simmons. She's the Director of Strategy at Student Voice, a national organization focused on empowering youth. She's a student at Barnard College and flew all the way here to ask you this question.
No pressure. How will you work to give young people a seat at the table in your administration, even if they aren't old enough to vote yet?
Repeat that question again, I'm sorry.
How will you work to give young people a seat at the table in your administration, even if they aren't old enough to vote yet?
Good. Okay, great question. Well, you know, it's a funny thing. I'll tell you what I did when I was mayor of a city called Burlington, Vermont. Anybody ever visit Vermont here? Great, well, we want you all to come and visit us. And Burlington, I don't know, how big is Des Moines? Anyone know? 250,000? Okay, it's a lot bigger than Burlington. Burlington is the largest city in Vermont. We're only 40,000. I was mayor there for 8 years. And literally before I took office, I think it was a month into between the election and taking office, we had meetings with parents and young people to talk about how the city could address their problems. I believe very much that if we're going to be a vibrant democracy, you got to listen to the young people. We got to listen to know what's on your minds. You are citizens of America, and even if you can't vote, you are impacted by public policy. So I did that as mayor, and the end result, we had a whole lot of school. But they were interested in music and stuff. We started a teen center. And you know who ran the teen center? The young people themselves. Okay, we didn't allow drugs or tobacco, but basically they ran it. We had a student newspaper, a city newspaper run by the students. We had a television program run by the students. So I believe very strongly that if we're going to maintain a vibrant democracy, we have to involve young people, let them know that their voices count, get them to thinking about the issues that impact their lives. So thanks very much for that question.
Your next question will come from Grant DeWay, a student at Valley High School in West Des Moines.
With all due respect, you have laid out